came to Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, and he said to him something in the meaning of which that أنه يعصي الله عز وجل ويذنب ومع ذلك فإن الله عز وجل يعطيني ولا يحرمني. That he says that I commit sins and still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for me and gives for me. So he was asking how that is, thinking that if he commits a sin then everything he has to be deprived from everything. So then he told them, هل تقوم الليل? Do you pray at night, the night prayer? He said no. He said حرمك لذة مناجاتي أو كما قال. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deprived you then from the sweetness of being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to make dhikr of Allah, to make ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how they used to see things. Person not just deprived from Salatul Fajr in Jama'ah, deprived from the night prayer. Right? He would relate this to his own weaknesses and deficiencies so that they would repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep their iman strong and to increase their iman. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the book. And some of the things will pass by quickly inshallah ta'ala because we discussed it before in matters of iman. We stopped at the last part was about the belief in the Quran. Then he says, وَالْإِيمَانُ بِالرُّؤْيَةِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ يَرَوْنَ اللَّهَ بأبصار رؤوسهم وهو يحاسبهم بلا حجاب ولا ترجمان. One of the principles of Aqidah that the believers, the people of Ahl Sunnah, they believe in the ru'ya. The ru'ya meaning that they will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the believers will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is what he refers to. The special ru'ya or the special seeing of the believers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment in the Jannah. They would see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why this is mentioned in the book of Aqidah? Because some deviants, they denied this because they put forward their own reason and their own desire before what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So you would find all these deviations has to do with the very first principles that were mentioned. That this deen is to be for a person to believe in it without putting forward any of one's desires or innovating or initiating anything, but just to believe in things the way it is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran that the believers will see Him in the day of judgment. وَجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. Faces, they will be bright in the day of judgment. They are looking at their Lord. So believers, they believe in that. There's no need for someone to comprehend it in this life. It's beyond our capacity to comprehend because nothing is the like of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But since it's mentioned like this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to do all things. So they would see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the many ahadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, one of which he said alayhi salatu wasalam, إِنَّكُمْ سَتَرَوْنَ رَبَّكُمْ عَيَانًا. You will see your Lord عَيَانًا, meaning with your own eyes clear, so that nobody would say seeing with the heart, for example, or something like this. عَيَانًا, with your own eyes. You will see your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala with your own eyes. لَا تُضَامُّونَ فِي رُؤْيَتِهِ أو لا تضارون في رؤيته. You would not be harmed by seeing Him. You would not be get together because it's very tight to see. Everybody will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the believers, at matters of ease. And also so to see the relationship between this belief and actions. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in this hadith in Shaykh Muslim, فَإِنِ اسْتَطَعْتُمْ عَلَى أَلَّا تُغْلَبُوا عَلَى صَلَاةٍ قَبْلَ طُلُوعِ الشَّمْسِ وَقَبْلَ غُرُوبِهَا فَافْعَلُوا. If you're able not to be ever defeated or overpowered to miss a salah before sunrise and before sunset, then do so, meaning Fajr and Asr, to make sure that you pray them in the masjid, to pray them in Jama'ah, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make you among those who will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment. And this ru'ya, the seeing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment, is the most joyful thing for the people in Jannah. All of what is described about Jannah and all the desires that human beings have, and they can relate themselves to it from the desires they have in this life. And when we read the Quran, we see what's mentioned in Jannah of the food and drink and hur'een and palaces and all of this. We know how these things kind of feel, and this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made these things in this life for people to have an example of what's ahead of them if they are believers. All of this is nothing compared to the fact that the believers would see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The joy of this is overcome all joy in the day of judgment or in Jannah. So the believers, they will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment. يَرَوْنَ اللَّهَ بِأَبْصَارِ رُؤُوسِهِمْ. That's why he's being very precise, because those who deny this, to make sure that we have the correct aqidah in it. That the believers will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their eyes in their head. These eyes. Not necessarily your specific eye now, it means with their eyes, because human beings when they're resurrected, they are resurrected themselves, they are resurrected. Right? The same individual is resurrected. So they will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their eyes, وَهُوَ يُحَاسِبُهُمْ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will يُحَاسِبُهُم. Al-hisab means reckoning. He will, what's another word for hisab? Not questioning, because questioning is part of hisab. But if you know that there's difference between al-hisab, or for the people to be presented for them their deeds, or for them to be interrogated as far as the punishment is concerned. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, as for the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith, مَنْ نُوقِشَ الْحِسَابِ عُذِّبْ. Whoever is asked to give an answer, he will be punished. But for the believers, they will be only reminded of their sins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will get them closer, and He will remind them of their sins. So they will be reminded of it. They won't be asked to answer, to defend themselves. Then after they are reminded of this, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, I forgave you, I concealed it for you in this life, and I forgive you for it. But if someone in the Day of Judgment is asked, why did you do that? For an answer, that means he has to be punished. This is those who will be punished in hellfire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that reckons, and He's the one that questions His creation. Bila hijab wa la turjuman. There is no hijab between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His creation when He questioned them, when He judged among them. Wa la turjuman, and no translator. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all things. So, and this is not mentioned based on just things that people agreed upon. Of course it's agreed upon, but because it's in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ with the same, almost the same wordings. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yudni abdahu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring close to Him His slave. وَيُكَلِّمُهُ مَا مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا وَسَيُكَلِّمُهُ اللَّهُ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى. None of you, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will speak to him in the Day of Judgment. Right? And the believer, as the Prophet ﷺ said, فَيَنْظُرْ أَيْمَنَ مِنْهُ فَلَا يَجِدْ إِلَّا مَا قَدَّمْ. He would look to his right, he would only see what he brought forth with his deeds. He would look in his left, he would not see anything but his deeds. And when he looked in front of him, he would see nothing but the hellfire. Then he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ وَلَوْ بِشِقِّ تَمْرَةٍ. Shield yourself from the hellfire, even for a half piece of date. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hisab, and the reckoning, and the questioning, and what people will be asked about, this is all in the Day of Judgment, without any hijab, without any covering, and without any translation. The second point, this is what we mentioned these things before many times, we just touch on them, so that we'll be able to finish the entire book, inshallah ta'ala. يقول والإيمان بالميزان يوم القيامة. Part of the belief, to believe in al-mizan. Al-mizan is the balance, and this balance in the Day of Judgment. Balance of the deeds. The deeds will be weighed on the balance in the Day of Judgment. يوزن فيه الخير والشر له كفتان ولسان. In this balance, the good and the evil will be weighed on it, and it has two scales, two sides, and it has a tongue. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said. It's a physical mizan, it's a physical scale, physical. And it's with two sides, as the Prophet ﷺ said. And deeds will be made physical to be weighed on it. And why this is mentioned? Because some people, because this is something that they think it's a metaphorical thing. No, it's a physical thing. Right? And deeds will be weighed on it, although these deeds in this life has no physical appearance to it, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make for these deeds something physical for them, and they will be weighed on the mizan, on the balance of the good deeds. Each aspect of these matters of the Day of Judgment has to have an effect in our life. So when we talk about the hisab, that means we have to have an answer for everything that we do. Or we have to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from all sins. But anything that we do, we have to make sure that we understand that this is permissible, what matters of wealth, for example, that لن تزول قدم عبد حتى يسأل عن أربع. There's no slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be removed from the day of judgment unless he is asked about 4 things. He will be asked عن عمره فيما أفناه, his life, how did he waste his life, وعن شبابه فيما أبلاه, and his youth years especially, how he spent his youth years. This is the years of strength in one's body, in one's mental capacity. This is the years where it's supposed to be the best in matters of actions and deeds and so on. How did he waste these years? وعن ماله من أين اكتسبه وفيما أنفقه, and his wealth, where did he earn it and how did he spend it? And with every single penny, he will be asked وعن علمه ماذا عمل به, and his knowledge, how did he act according to the knowledge? Anything that we get to know, we have to make sure also that we act according to it. And the mizan, the same thing, al-khayr wa shar. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى. Mithqal, whoever do a deed, the weight of it, goodness, weight of it, of a mustard seed, the smallest thing ever, he would see it. And whoever do a deed that is evil, the weight of a mustard seed, he would see it. This ayat in Surah Al-Zalzala, right? If a person recites it, a person would think أنه لن ينجو أحد أبدا. Whoever recites them, he would think that nobody will be saved in the day of judgment, because every single mustard seed weight of good deed, he would see it, and every bad deed, even if it's the weight of a mustard seed, he would see it in the day of judgment. So this is a very important verse. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful, but this is the level of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that should be present in the hearts of the believers, because we forget what we do, but everything is recorded. And the only way that this will be removed is with a sincere repentance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. Otherwise, seeing that in the day of judgment, that means it's the punishment of Allah unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive. So the mizan is a physical thing, and the deeds will be weighed on it. And there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that individuals will be weighed on it. And as the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, يُؤْتَمْ الرَّجُلْ الْعَظِيمُ السَّمِينُ. The man will be brought in the day of judgment. He's big and he's very heavy. لَا يَزِنُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ جَنَاحَ بَعُوضٍ. He will be put on the mizan, and he doesn't weigh the weight of wing of a mosquito or a bug or a fly. So it's not by the physical appearance, it's by the person and his actions. So the deeds will be weighed, and the human beings also will be weighed with their actions. And one hasana, if the balance goes one way or the other, if the good deeds outweighs the bad deeds with one hasana, that means that person will enter the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, he will enter the hellfire. So that shows also the importance of the good deeds, even if it's small, even if it's one, might be that one that saves the person. And also the danger of the bad deeds might be that one that would make the person fall into the hellfire. So this is al-mizan. The next point, وَالْإِيمَانُ بِعَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ وَمُنْكَرْ وَنَكِيرٍ. That we believe in adab al-qabr, in the punishment in the grave, and munkar wa nakir, they are the 2 angels, those who would question the person in the grave. Adab al-qabr, why it's mentioned? Because again, these are some of the things that some of the deviants denied it, because they already made a principle in themselves that anything that opposes their own reason, they would distort it or explain it in their own terms. And another deviant way for these deviants to believe, if the matter is not mentioned clearly, explicitly in the Quran, they would not believe in it. So many things of matters of Aqidah are mentioned in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and it's not mentioned in the Quran. So it's still part of the Aqidah for the person to believe in, and that's what also makes the people of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah unique. Like many of the signs of the hour, it's mentioned in the Sunnah and not mentioned in the Quran. So there's no differences between the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ when it comes to legislation and belief and actions, because they're both wahy from Allah. This is matter of belief. So I will differentiate between the Quran and the Sunnah in that sense, that he would only take what's from the Quran, and the Sunnah he would treat it in a little bit less important. This is the beginning, or this is the sign of deviation. Both are in the same level when it comes to the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are not, of course, the same. They are not the like whatsoever, because one is the words of Allah, miraculous words of Allah, and the other one is the speech of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's makhluk, it's creation of Allah. But both, since they are both wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so the level of obedience and submission are exactly the same from the believers. So the Prophet ﷺ, and actually Adab al-Qabr is mentioned in the Quran too, and not just in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The ayat that talks about the angels taking the souls of the disbelievers, beating them up and so on, and the stories of Fir'aun, that they are being punished till the Day of Judgment. And then so there are many verses in the Quran that talks about punishment in the grave. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ are so many. And the questioning in the grave, the 3 questions in the grave that everybody will be asked: Man Rabbuk, Ma Dinuk, Man Rajul Ladhi Bu'itha Fikum. Who's your Lord? What is your religion? Who's the man that was sent among you? And the believers would say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my Lord, Islam is my religion, and the man is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as for the munafiq or the disbeliever, he would say, Ha la adri. I do not know, I do not know, I do not know. So there is adab, there is punishment in the grave, and there is the opposite, which is the delight in the grave for the believers. And there are certain deeds that are reasons or means for people to have punishment in the grave. The kufr, of course, disbelief, shirk, major sins, all of this. But there are special deeds that are mentioned in some of the hadith, like the Prophet ﷺ, he said, عَامَّةُ عَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ. And this is a sound hadith, that the most common punishment in the grave is from urine. When people don't clean themselves after urinating and so on. But a person has to be careful not to have waswas or to go into extreme in cleaning himself, that he will spend a long time in the bathroom trying to clean himself. No, the matter is easy. The religion is easy, but those who neglect their cleanliness, therefore their wudu is not valid, then this is one of the reasons for the punishment in the grave, as the Prophet ﷺ passed by 2 graves. And he said, إِنَّهُمَا لَا يُعَذَّبَانِ وَمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ فِي كَبِيرٍ. They are being punished now. And they are not being punished in something major. That means it was easy for them to avoid, although it's something that's supposed to be major. Whether some said that means it's a minor thing, and some said it's major, but it was easy for them to avoid. أَمَّا أَحَدُهُمَا فَكَانَ يَمْشِي بِالنَّاسِ بِالنَّمِيمِ. The first one, he used to go around among people with an-namima, slandering, and causing enmity between people by taking the words of this to this and so on. And the other person, كَانَ لَا يَسْتَنْزِهُ مِنْ بَوْلِهِ, he used to not to clean himself from his urinating. So this is something that the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him see in his life of what's happening in the grave. So there is punishment in the grave. So there is these things that happens in the grave. وَالْإِيمَانُ بِعَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ وَمُنْكَرُ وَنَكِيرُ. Munkar wa Nakir are the 2 angels that would question the person in the grave. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that when a person dies, it's the long hadith, it has so much details in it. And we mentioned this hadith before also, that when a person is buried and he hears the footsteps of the people when they leave, till the last person leaves, then after the last person leaves, the 2 angels, they come, فَيُجْلِسَانِهِ, and they would make him sit. And they would ask him the 3 questions. مَنْ رَبُّكَ مَا دِينُكَ وَرَجُلَ الَّذِي بُعِثَ فِيكُمْ. And this is a fitna, this is a trial. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that it's the like, or it's the like of fitnat al-Dajjal. Qarib, or close, or the like of fitnat al-Dajjal. إِنَّ اللَّهَ أَوْحَى إِلَيْهِ أَنَّكُمْ تُفْتَنُونَ فِي قُبُورِكُمْ قَرِيبًا أَوْ مِثْلَ فِتْنَةِ الدَّجَّالِ. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to me that you will be tested and tried in the graves the same or close to the trial of a Dajjal, which is the biggest trial ever on the face of earth. So this is a very severe trial in the grave, and the only ones that will be steadfast and pass this trial are the believers. And who's the one that gives them steadfastness? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives steadfastness to the believers with the steadfastness speech in this life and in the hereafter. So these are the two angels. How the azan servant, Allah knows best, but the words are clear, and this is where the believers, they believe, and their actions will be according. The next point, وَالْإِيمَانُ بِحَوْضِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم وَلِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ حَوْض إِلَّا صَالِحُ النَّبِيِّ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ فَإِنَّ حَوْضَهُ ضِرْعُ نَاقَتِهِ. He's saying that to believe in the hawd, and the hawd is the tub, that's what a hawd is, a place where a container where there's water in it. So to believe in the hawd of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that is in the Day of Judgment. وَلِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ حَوْض. And every prophet, he has a hawd. He has this container or tub or so, where there's water in it, and he would give drink to his followers. Each prophet gives drink to his followers, and the Prophet ﷺ, his hawd is the biggest of all of them, and he would give the drink to his followers. And some people from the followers of the Prophet ﷺ, from his ummah, will be kept away. They would not be able to come and drink from the Prophet ﷺ because they changed, as the hadith says. The angels will say to the Prophet ﷺ, فَإِنَّكَ لَتَدْرِي مَا أَحْدَثُ بَعْدَكَ. You do not know what they introduced after you. So those who introduced in matters of the religion after the Prophet ﷺ, they will be deprived from drinking from the hawd of the Prophet ﷺ. And the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he would talk to the Sahaba as if this hawd is something that is very close, like something very close to the people. He ﷺ, whenever he would talk to them about the hereafter, as if he's talking about what we're going to do tomorrow, for example. Like there was no much difference between this life and hereafter. Something that they're all going to. So he would say to them, أَنَا فَرَطُكُمْ عَلَى الْحَوْضِ. I will be ahead of you, waiting for you by the hawd. So the believers, when they're resurrected, they're looking for the Prophet ﷺ, and he continued with the hadith that some people will be deprived of this. The second statement in which he mentioned, except the Prophet Salih ﷺ, his hawd is what's the name of the dar' al-naqa, the utter, where the milk is in. What do you call that? Bag of milk in the cow or the camel? The udder, I think. Something like that. But this has no evidence to it whatsoever. So the second part is there's no evidence that this is going to be the hawd of Salih alayhi salam. But the hadith mentioned that every prophet will have a hawd. The second one after the hawd, وَالْإِيمَانُ بِشَفَاعَةِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم لِلْمُذْنِبِينَ الْخَاطِئِينَ في يوم القيامة وعلى الصراط ويخرجهم من جوف جهنم. They believe in the shafa'ah. This is another point and principle in matters of belief, to believe in the shafa'ah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the shafa'ah, and we heard it many times before, shafa'ah comes from a shafa', that means two, when someone needs something else, intercession from someone else as means of helping him to be saved from the hellfire. The Prophet ﷺ will intercede for his ummah, and this intercession is by the permission of Allah. Nobody will dictate anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَشْفَعُ عِنْدَهُ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ. No one will intercede to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except by the permission of Allah. So it's a way to honor the intercessor. That's why the Prophet ﷺ will receive the biggest honor, and because he has the shafa' al-uzma, the major intercession. And it would never happen unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with those who would benefit from the intercession. And we just talked about that a few days ago, right? That you in this dunya, you might intercede for someone, but that person might not be very pleased with him, but he would accept your intercession because you are a respected person. Right? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not the same, of course. The intercession will be only accepted when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is already pleased with that sinner, or that person is pleased with him, he forgave his sins, but the intercession is a way to honor the intercessor, and it's by the permission of Allah. And this intercession, لِلْمُذْنِبِينَ الْخَاطِئِينَ, to those who are sinners and they did wrong. So, because some people, they denied this, because they looked at some parts of the Quran or one verse and neglect others. And this is always the ways of the people of deviation. They won't say things without the Quran and the Sunnah. They would mention things in the Quran and the Sunnah, but they would take something and omit something else. So, for example, they read the ayah, وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. No one will have or bear the sin of another. So each person will come on his own, so there's no shafa'a. So this no, shafa'a is to those who are, they committed sins. And it's mentioned in the hadith of the shafa'a, to those who died in the state of Islam with even major sins. And the Prophet ﷺ will intercede for them. في يوم القيامة, in the day of judgment. So this is in the day of judgment in general, the shafa'a of the Prophet ﷺ to all mankind for the reckoning, for the hisab to start. وعلى الصراط, and while they are, when they're crossing the sirat, the Prophet ﷺ will be standing there and he will intercede for his ummah. ويخرجهم من جوف جهنم, and also bringing them out from Jahannam after they fall into the Jahannam. So some people, they would benefit from the shafa'a and they would not be punished, and they deserve to be punished. And some people will be already punished and they will be brought out of the hellfire by the effect of the shafa'a of the Prophet ﷺ and the believers. وَمَا مِن نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا لَهُ شَفَاعَةٌ. Every prophet, he has shafa'a. Every prophet, he will be honored in the day of judgment, that he will have a shafa'a intercession. وَكَذَلِكَ الصِّدِّقُونَ وَالشُّهَدَاءُ وَالصَّالِحُونَ. And the same thing for the truthful ones, the siddiqun, and the martyrs and the righteous ones. They all have this by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will honor them by giving them the shafa'a to bring out from the hellfire those who they used to know in this life. As it's mentioned in the hadith of the shafa'a, the long hadith of the shafa'a talks about this, that they will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our brothers, they used to pray with us, they used to fast with us, but they fell into the hellfire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell them to go and bring out of the hellfire everyone that they know, and then go to the hellfire and bring out from the hellfire anyone that has the weight of a mustard seed of iman. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take from the hellfire by His mercy subhanahu wa ta'ala to people from the hellfire to enter Jannah, those who died in the state of Islam. يقول ولله بعد ذلك تفضل كثير في من يشاء. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after that, He has His bounty on whoever He wills after this, after those who intercede and after those who will be forgiven and so on. And at the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring from the hellfire whoever He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala. والخروج في من يشاء والخروج من النار بعد ما احترقوا وصاروا فحما. They will be brought out of the hellfire after they were burned and they became like coal, totally burned. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take them out of the hellfire. And there's these extended hadith talks about these specifications, like the hadith in Sahih Muslim and others. So it's important to refer to these hadith also and to study them. The last point before we go to the أحكام الصيام, يقول والإيمان بالصراط على جهنم, and to believe in the sirat. The sirat على جهنم, on top of Jahannam. The sirat is a path, and the path is what they call it a bridge, whatever. It's a path underneath which is the hellfire. And those who will be on the sirat, those who would pass the sirat, are only the believers, those who died in the state of Islam, because of these believers they will be thrown into the hellfire early on. So the sirat, only those who will cross it are the believers, and according to their deeds they will cross. يأخذ الصراط من شاء الله ويجوز من شاء الله. The sirat will take whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, take them down to the hellfire, and some will pass by the will of Allah. ويسقط في جهنم من شاء الله, and some would fall into the hellfire whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will. ولهم أنوار على قدر إيمانه, and they have lights according to their levels of iman. The light will be the means for them to cross the sirat accordingly. They have a lot of light, their speed on the sirat will be faster, and the faster they are, the less effect they get by the fire and by the hooks around the sirat, and all of that by the justice of Allah and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, people they need the speed on the sirat, right? So it's not just about saved of the hellfire. People, when they're crossing to go to Jannah, they need full speed, so that they're not affected by the hellfire underneath them, or otherwise the hellfire can take them down with the hooks of the salat, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So what is that speed? When people are levels according to their deeds with that speed. The Prophet ﷺ, when he said in the hadith, "Man batta'a bihi amalu, lam yusri' bihi nasab." Whoever his deeds slow him down, his lineage would not get him ahead. Right? So the deeds are the things that slows the person down or get him ahead and to make him fast. It's nothing but the deeds in this life. So we have criteria to know how fast the person will be in the Day of Judgment, is how fast are we in response to the orders of Allah and His Messenger ﷺ. Are we among those who وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, haste, be in haste, وَسَابِقُوا, compete with one another whenever the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, or we're making sure that all of our measures in this life is secure and everything is okay. Then if everything is okay, then we respond to the orders of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to flee to Allah. فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ. الْفِرَارُ إِلَى اللَّهِ, to flee to Allah. We know exactly what it means to فَفِرُّوا, flee. I don't know, the word flee means the person is fleeing, he's not walking, he's not running in a very comfortable mood. He's fleeing from a danger that would take his life. So he's running the fastest speed that he can have without looking back, without any second thought that what he's doing is the right thing. Right? Why? Because it's right behind him. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from the believers, not to be hesitant whatsoever that the outcome is bad if they obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they respond to the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, without second thoughts, to flee to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And according to how people they are in this, then this is how their speed will be on the salat if they die in the state of Islam. They die, and some people will fall into the hellfire as a result of their actions or their sins slowed them down in their path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why the lights will be given according to their iman. We'll stop inshallah ta'ala at this point here. And